Alrighty. Well, first of all, I would like to say just a general welcome and thank you all for your interest and willingness to participate in this content reviewer training. We hope that you will accomplish 3 things as a result of participating in the training. We have identified these learner objectives through I can statements, and we anticipate and hope that you will be able to meet these objectives by the time we conclude the session today. We anticipate that you will be able to describe the purpose of a content review, that you'll be able to navigate the online platform and locate the program information that you have been assigned, and that you can then complete the documentation needed in order to demonstrate your content review. The Kentucky Revised Statute 161028 establishes the authority of the Education Professional Standards Board. This statute establishes the foundation on which the EPSB has determined a protocol for reviewing and approving programs. This protocol is specified in Regulation 16 KAR 5010, which requires the inclusion of experts in the areas relating to certification. Section 19 references specifically the Content Review Committee, of which we hope all of you will become members. The content reviewers provide the expertise in the content areas relating to a program's resulting certification. This next slide is just a general overview of the different stages and processes of program review. It shows how the content reviewers play a role in a sequence of events relating to the review of educator preparation programs. It all starts with the EPP submitting a program for review. For those of you who may not be familiar with the acronym, EPP means an educator preparation provider, which in the majority of the programs that are reviewed come from a college or university. The second step of the review process after submission is the staff review, which reviews and looks for information demonstrating compliance with the regulatory requirements and completeness of the submission. If there are major issues with the program resulting from the staff review, the program is sent back to the EPP with specific information about what's missing. Once that occurs, if it occurs, the program is assigned to a content review committee. Those committee members are then asked to review the program and submit a review worksheet. The results of the staff reviews, as well as the content review committee feedback, are forwarded on to the program review committee, which is a board-appointed committee by the Education Professional Standards Board. As they review the programs, they consider the feedback provided by the content reviewers and the staff reviews, and they create a document called the Program Review Update, and it includes recommendations per program. This update then is shared with the EPP, and the EPP then gets to respond to the update in a sequence until all the concerns have been addressed. The next section will be Eve talking about the requirements and what the content reviewers are asked to respond to, and the questions that you receive.
As we move to the slide on section 1, as Kathy mentioned earlier.
Eve, I'm sorry, before you get started, I just want to check. I keep hearing dings, and is anyone seeing that people need to be admitted and I'm missing it because we're in slide view here?
I'm admitting them.
Thank you so much, Eve. I appreciate it. And I apologize for interrupting. Thank you.
As we move to the next slide, this is section 1. And section 1 is going to talk about content. What is the content that is expected in content reviews? So we're not only going to talk about the content, we're also going to talk about the questions that content reviewers are asked to answer, as well as the rubrics. And the little cartoon is just a little funny because, you know, we use this as teachers many times where we say to people, it's in the syllabus, you know, when they ask a question, if they had read things thoroughly. That's not unlike what you're going to hear us talking about throughout this content. A lot of information should be provided in the syllabi because that's where the candidates are getting the majority of their information, but there will be some additional places as well. So we're going to move into the whole issue of SPA standards and what we're looking at. The key responsibility of content reviewers is their knowledge of the specialty content standards. So we call those SPA, the Specialty Professional Association Standards. This is why we have you, is because you represent a wide variety of experts in different content areas. These standards are developed by the national associations for the most part. The specialty standards or the SPA standards are the guidance documents for the knowledge and skills to be demonstrated in each of the content program areas. They're so key to what we ask our content reviewers to be looking for. There's not a single set of SPA standards. English has a set, math has a set. Some of them even have a couple of sets. You know, elementary may have more than one that you're looking at, middle school. So it's very important that you as the expert know which standards for the program that you're being asked to review. Likewise, not all standards are, I'm not quite there yet, but not all standards are organized in the same manner. For instance, the National Council for Teachers of Math have their SPA standards organized in one way, whereas the National Science Teachers Association organized the science standards in a different way. So just know that all the SPA standards are different depending on the National Association. The Educational Professional Standards Board approves programs based on these program SPA standards. So it's very important that we get a good review of them. There are also instances of where our standards board, EPSB, has set some state standards. For instance, the Kentucky Teacher Performance Standards, which are the same things as NTAS standards, are standards that we set as a state. The counseling standards, the school counseling preparation standards, are ones that last August we were adopted by the board. So there are some state standards instead of the national standards as we go. And some examples of these standards are going to be the Cape Elementary 2018. One thing that's key here, and you'll see it when I get to the National Council for Teachers of Math, is we many times date them because these are updated by the national associations. And so Cape has the elementary standards that are that Kentucky is expected the preparation programs to be accountable for now, and they were put out in 2018. AMLE standards is the Association of Middle Level Educators, and those are used in Kentucky. The ILA used to be IRA. Some of you are familiar with maybe IRA. It's ILA, and in 2017, they updated standards. Look at the National Council for Teachers of Math. Note there are 2 years there, 2012 and 2020. Because those standards are out just this year, we do not expect the preparation programs to have all of their courses and everything aligned right now. They have a period of time, about 18 months, in which they are aligning their courses to their SPA standards. So sometimes you may be reviewing a program that is still using the 2012 standards instead of the 2020 standards, for instance. As we move on, now that we've gone and given you some examples, the question that we want you to investigate is how thoroughly has this program, through its courses and the specialty answers, addressed the SPA standards in their courses? Your familiarity with the SPA standard assists as you review this program to determine the thoroughness of it. It's critical to understand that the courses and the syllabi must be linked to not only the SPA standards, but also the elements within that standard. Sometimes there may be 8 or 10 standards, but there are lots of little specialty sub-elements that must be addressed within those courses as well. By reviewing all of the course syllabi and making notes as you're reviewing those syllabi, you can make some decisions about how the SPA standards and elements are being addressed within this program, and how the candidate is being given an opportunity to demonstrate those within this course. When you're responding to the question, we give you a rubric, and you will notice that we are asking you about the thoroughness of it. We also ask you to give us a comment. For instance, if you're looking at the scoring rubric and you're scoring and they're emerging, your comment may be something like 2 out of the 10 classes did not address the standards and elements, or 8 of the classes addressed all the standards and elements, but 2 did not, or all of the classes addressed the standards, but they didn't address the elements. So there are lots of different comments that could be made. But 3, meets expectations is what our expectation is from our KDE office, is that the courses and syllabi do demonstrate that they are aligned with the SPA standards and elements. So that's one of the things that you will be looking for. So as you review the programs, you want to see how the SPA standards and elements are addressed through the course objectives, the experiences, and the discussion. The requirement is that through all their required courses, that they would have demonstrated each of the SPA standards and elements. Now, if you want to know what a comment looks like, because we said it's important for you to score these, but it's also important for you to give us a comment. On the next slide, we have given you an example of a comment. Here's one that we just recently received from a content reviewer. The comment was, all SPA standards are met except 4E. The teacher recognizes learner misconceptions in a discipline that interferes with learning. This is what was not met. And the reasoning behind it is they list several EDU courses as meeting 4E, but they're all general pedagogy classes or field experiences. A great deal of physics education research has been done that has identified a large number of common learner misconceptions, and a physics teacher should know what these are in order to meet standard 4E. There's no evidence that this was in the preparation program. So that's the kind of comment that's very important for us, because it's providing us very specific feedback. The program thought they had met all the standards, but you know what the intricacies are of some of those little elements, the 4E, the E element of standard 4. And it said that it's about learner misconceptions. And in this instance, the program didn't address, there was nothing in any of the syllabi, especially the ones that they listed, that talked about learner misconceptions. So those are comments that help provide feedback to justification for your scoring rubric. Okay, as we continue on, we also are going to talk about, do they assess the SPA content, skills, and competencies? Now, this is real important to us because we want you to determine the extent to which all of the SPA standards and competencies are assessed when you're reviewing the syllabi and program information. Some things you want to consider are things like, is each SPA content standard assessed? Is the assessment a measure of that SPA content standard? Does the program identify how SPA competencies are assessed so that the candidate demonstrates these competencies? These could even be described in some of the clinical experiences. Do the within course assessments, and many of the courses will have projects and course assessments. Do those assessments measure the SPA content? These candidates have been exposed to the content and have been assessed is what we're looking for. And so you look at the syllabi in terms of the SPA standards. So this scoring rubric shows you, and again, the meets expectation would be that most assessments are clearly aligned to the SPA skills and competencies. And that would be answering the question of how do the courses and program assessments show measurement of the SPA skills and competencies. Emerging would be something like some of the assessments are clearly aligned, but others aren't, so that would be an emerging one. Exemplary, and you will have programs that you review that do this, and that's where they demonstrate throughout their courses exactly how they're measuring the SPA competencies within the coursework and within the program. So you'll get a variety of things that you look at. There are also some additional questions that we ask you to answer regarding SPA. These deal with the pedagogy. And the pedagogy is real important to us because we know that this is how this particular content area, the knowledge and the subject matter, how they're assessing student progress. There's a variety of pedagogical approaches in schools, but some are specific to and are more effective and appropriate to specific content areas. And this is what we know that you know, that you're an expert in a particular area, and so you should know what pedagogical strategies and assessments and things are being presented to the candidate. Are they using things such as connecting the learning to students, using things in math such as concrete to abstract, problem solving? Are they using the language that's explicit in that particular content area? So the first question addresses to what degree is appropriate pedagogical content addressed? Again, not to the rubric yet, but back to the question of being addressed. Are there specific strategies and methods that are presented to the candidates? The second question talks about assessment. To what degree is the appropriate pedagogical content assessed? Were there accompanying rubrics that aligned with the demonstration of the knowledge of pedagogy for the candidates? Were there examples in the clinical experiences that allowed the candidates? So again, this is pedagogy. It's not the standards, but it's the pedagogy to teach and use within the SPA content area. And the rubric that goes along with this, again, it's a 4-3-2-1. The meets expectation would be that through the course descriptions and syllabi, they do demonstrate appropriate pedagogical content and knowledge. There's evidence of the pedagogy expected within the content area, and it's defined. So you're looking for not just standards here, but that they are presenting strategies and learning that would be specific to the content area. As we move on, we're going to be looking at how is it assessed? And this would be, again, the 4-3-2-1 measurement. And in the 3, it would be, do the syllabi demonstrate multiple performance-based assessments of candidate pedagogical content, knowledge, and skills? Now, again, this is measurement of pedagogy as opposed to measurement of the SPA standard. It's demonstrating the skills associated with the content area. So you would expect to be seeing something that asks them to perform and to demonstrate the pedagogy according to the content. Emerging means that they give minimal evidence, and maybe it's that they're using a lot of general strategies, a lot of things, but nothing very specific to the content area in which you're reviewing at this point. So again, you've got those two questions. How well is pedagogy addressed, and how well is it assessed? As we move on, the second huge area that we ask our content reviewers to address are the Kentucky academic standards. The focus on the Kentucky academic standards is that we know that within your particular SPA area, the content area, you will review to see, well, how do they incorporate the specific Kentucky academic standards in the teachings within this SPA area? The Kentucky Department of Education has adopted content standards for each required subject area for teachers, and they're to use these to focus and guide lesson development and to ensure students learn for success. KDE provides the content standards, and the districts determine how the Kentucky academic standards are delivered and assessed. However, the expectation that we have in our preparation programs is that the programs would guide the candidates on multiple ways to design, deliver, and assess instruction. So even though the candidates will go out to many different districts, The preparation programs are responsible for having them not just know what the standards are, but how do you design, deliver, and assess instruction related to those standards. So this is one of the things you want to be looking for as you are reviewing the courses and the syllabi, but also as you're reviewing other documents that the EPP provides with that. So you're looking on the instructional design piece. The question that we ask related to Kentucky academic standards is, do the coursework and experiences, you notice we go beyond just courses now, do the experiences adequately prepare teacher candidates with the content knowledge needed for teaching the Kentucky academic standards? Here you're asked to review the syllabi and consider things such as, in the coursework and syllabi, do they expose candidates to the standards and the resources such as the model curriculum framework, resources the candidates can use to reference and use, multiple venues for demonstrating understanding of the Kentucky academic standards. So a critical component of the teacher preparation program is to prepare the candidates to teach the Kentucky academic standards for student success, and to allow the candidates to be exposed to the variety of ways in which this can be done. The scoring rubric that we use for this Kentucky academic standards part, again, is a 4-3-2-1. The fourth goes above and beyond. 3 is what we're looking at, is do the course descriptions and the syllabi demonstrate inclusion of the Kentucky academic standards content base? One of the things that we need to look for here is that there is an expectation that this would be beyond just giving us standards numbers, that the candidate in their lesson plans have addressed, the Kentucky academic standards 1, 9, and 14, or whatever they are. We do look to see that they've been exposed to not only the content knowledge, but some experiences so they can design, deliver, and assess the content standards with students. And so you're looking at that when you're looking at the 3. 2 might be it's emerging. Maybe in the program you see where there's maybe one class that addresses the KAS and it doesn't address very many of the standards. Or maybe that particular class didn't address some strategies to expose the candidates to how to use the standards and things like that. So this is, again, a scoring rubric of 4-3-2-1 so that you can not only score it, but provide us some examples through your comments on, well, what did they include or what did they not include? And many times that's excellent feedback to the programs so they know what they might need to use for continuous improvement. Now, there's a third area in which we ask our content reviewers to give us specific information. And this is on the field / clinical experiences. It's not only important for students to be able to be told about what you do within classes, but also to experience it in the real world. It's one thing to be told, but it's another thing to give experiences or simulations so that they can get a variety of ways in which they can do this. So what we do is we look to see, we know that our different universities provide this in diverse ways. So it's your job as a content reviewer to determine if the candidate receives sufficient opportunities for experiences and multiple types of observations and learning. Now, there's some that are required, and I'm going to be giving you a list of the required ones. They have to show that they've had some experiences with students from at least 2 different ethnic or cultural groups of which the candidate is not a member. They must be provided opportunities to have experience with students from different socioeconomic backgrounds. They must have experiences with English language learners. They must have experience with students with disabilities. They must have experiences with students from across elementary, middle school, and high school programs. Also in the KRS 5040, there's a listing of things that they need to have some experiences with. For instance, they need to have observations about family resource centers or youth service centers. They need to have experiences with student tutoring, working one-on-one with students, interaction with families of students, attendance at school board and school council meetings, participation in a school-based professional learning community, and opportunities to assist teachers or other professionals. So this idea of field and clinical experiences is broad. It means throughout reviewing all the syllabi, throughout reviewing the clinical questions, throughout reviewing the KP12 questions, what is it that this program has designed to give all those multiple opportunities for not just observation, but also participation? That opportunities to put into practice teaching skills is quite important before the candidate gets to student teaching. And I know that COVID-19 has provided this as a challenge to many places, but you'd be surprised how our EPPs are coming forward with different ways in which they are providing some experiences for the students. So look and review. Now, the specific question that we ask is, to what degree did this program provide opportunities in the field and clinical experiences for students to demonstrate, and again, appropriate pedagogical knowledge, content knowledge with students in P12 environments. So I think that you have to pay attention to things such as, did the EPP document through the courses and responses have a planned sequence of experiences to develop appropriate knowledge? One particular note is that these experiences should not be student choice. They should be planned and sequenced by the EPP. So one of the things that we're asking you to review and give us response on is, how did they prepare for these? So when you look at this rubric on the field clinical experiences, you'll notice that we have the same 4, 3, 2, 1. And you're reviewing the program, courses and experiences. And look at the meets expectation on this one. This one's critical. The courses and the syllabi demonstrate planned, sequenced, and meaningful field clinical experiences. Now, planned, sequenced, and meaningful are very key words here. If you know how we teach these learning strategies to students, those are 3 key words. Planned means that, you know, it's not just giving a list that's in the regulation and say, we do these things. We have to plan how we're going to do them, and we have to sequence them so they're meaningful. For instance, in the first 2 courses of introduction, we may just be sending students out to observe and to make note of ways things are done. In the next 2 or 3 courses, we may have them go out and co-teach or co-plan or just participate in something. And in the last way, when you're talking about sequence and planning them, those that where they really need to have experiences in teaching these is where you would have them maybe do additional co-teaching or actually some singular teaching or tutoring students, so that all of those different things that we talked about that we're looking for here were not only presented to the students and the students just choosing, okay, I've got to get 5 hours, so what am I going to do? These are planned in these 5 hours in this course, because these are the objectives of this course and we're aligning to these SPA standards. Here's what the experiences are that our candidates will receive so they can demonstrate to us that they have these competencies and these skills. So again, that's a pretty meaningful rubric for us when we're looking at this. And again, we want to emphasize that it's the EPP program that is planning these and doing this, that it would not be student choice, because it's to say that it's planned and sequenced and meaningful means that we don't just give them, well, you can do it any of these ways. We want it to have meaning to the candidates so they are growing and learning. We also have 4 additional program requirements. These will be when you are introduced to the content review sheet. These will be separate. They won't all be on the same source, but these are yes/no questions, or somewhat. Yes, they did this. No, they did not, or they kind of did it somewhat. And so what we're asking is not just a yes, no, somewhat, but tell us what you saw. For instance, the first one talks about diversity. As you review that, how is diversity addressed? Do you see specific knowledge and skills addressing diversity and different ways in which the candidate can meet the needs of all students? How was that planned within the program? How was it addressed? What opportunities did the candidates have? If you feel like that maybe there wasn't any, and maybe they read an article, but they didn't really get the experience, then you may want to give it a somewhat and give us a comment about why that was a somewhat on that. The second one is on assessment. Are we developing skills so that our candidates can assess P12 student learning? So you're looking for the different ways through informal assessment, classroom observations, classroom assessment. What types of classroom assessment have the candidates been exposed to? Have they practiced teacher reflection on their own teaching? What are they doing in terms of measuring student success? So in that assessment piece, there's a whole host of ways in which you can assess P12 students, and this needs to be very meaningful. So yes, they've done it in a lot of different ways. No, they maybe didn't do it. Or it may be a somewhat, yeah, they kind of did it, but they talked about formal assessment. They talked about the Kentucky assessment or reading that assessment data, but they didn't really go deeply into the informal assessment that we need our students to. The literacy reading requirement, as you can see, we've listed a Kentucky regulation there, 5060. It says that it's not just elementary teachers that need to know how to teach literacy and reading, that middle school and secondary teachers must as well. So one of the things that you must review as you're looking through the courses across your content area, especially in the middle and secondary areas, is where are they picking up on the literacy and reading skills that are needed for our learners. One of the things that we realize many of our students are deficit on in student success are low reading scores, and we know that impacts comprehension. We know that impacts obtainment of skills and everything else. So how did this program help our secondary teachers with the teaching of literacy and reading? And the last one, but probably most important in COVID-19, has been technology. How are we exposing our teacher candidates to the multiple types of technology and its uses for student success? Now, we know that our teacher candidates or teachers out there have had to experience lots of different platforms and resources and everything to teach right now. And many of our programs may not have exposed them to all those. I do know that many of our school districts have spent the summer teaching teachers how to use different types of technology. We've all learned different technologies ourselves recently. So this is one thing, are they doing more than just teaching them about Windows 365? Are they doing more than teaching them PowerPoint and Word? I mean, those are things that they're coming out with skills out of high school now. So what are we doing to expose our candidates to different platforms, to different mechanisms, to how they can actually use technology for self-paced modules, for independent backup learning, as well as for whole group learning? What is the evidence that you're finding within that? So those are pieces that are 4 questions, but they're very key questions to us as we move through our programs. Now we've moved to the last section, but before we take our questions, I want to talk to you about 3 things. The content questions that I just got through going over are specific to our initial teacher preparation programs, which are the most frequently reviewed programs by our content reviewers. However, we want you to also be aware that if you are reviewing an advanced teacher program, or if you're reviewing one of our other school professional programs, such as superintendent or principal or instructional supervisor or DPP or director of special ed, they have different questions because we're looking for different things within those preparation programs. So, but just be aware that what we have reviewed with you are those that are the most important. They're also underpinning questions for all the rest of the programs as well. And as we're getting ready to transition in a minute after the questions to where would I find the answer to these questions, we've put together a quick reference sheet for you, and we've taken each of the questions and we've located where you might start looking for this information. And we'll provide that quick reference sheet to you as you are given assignments for content reviews. And if you're not familiar with the specialty content standards or the most updated versions of the standards, we will also have a document in which you can access to get the most recent SPA links if you need those. So Kathy, did we receive any questions in the chat?
Nope, there are no questions in the chat, so we'll just take a couple of minutes right now and see if anybody wants to put any questions in the chat. I see a thumbs up, so that may mean that we're good to go. I see another thumbs up. That means you did an excellent job, Eve, and covered that content. Another thumbs up. And I see lots of familiar names that I appreciate, again, because me being new, many of you know each other, especially those of you in the EPPs. So, but this is a good opportunity for me because being new to the program, I've worked with several of you. So I feel like I need to do some double thanks because several of you have just recently completed some content reviews. So some of that is really just a review. Many of you have done some reviews just within the last few months. So again, but maybe a refresher for some who haven't completed them and new information for those of you who are coming on board for the first time. So without any further ado, Allison, would you unmute and share with us the next section, which will be again new, and then the third section will definitely be new for everyone as we have some new processes. So Allison?
Great. So now that you know what questions you'll have to answer, the next step is where to locate the program documentation. The first step in accessing the program will be to go to the EPSB's homepage, which is at epsb.ky.gov, and click on the link that says EPSB account. When you do that, you'll get to this page. Do not log on as yourself if you have an EPSB account. Okay? You will receive an email with specific credentials that you will use in order to log on as a content reviewer. Enter the username and password that is provided to you in the email. If you log in and you receive a message that the password has expired, please do not reset the password yourself. Contact Kathy White as soon as possible. After you enter the user ID and password, this is the page that pops up. Click on the word Keepers, KEPRS, which is an acronym for Kentucky Educator Preparation Review System. The red arrow you see on the screen points to that. Please note, there is a timeout feature built into Keepers. If you are idle in the system for more than 25 minutes, okay, or if you stay on the same page, you might be doing some things, but if you stay on the same page for more than 25 minutes, the system thinks that you're idle. You will receive a message that you're going to be logged out automatically in a few minutes. If you are automatically kicked out, all you need to do is log in again using the same identified username and password that you received in the email. This is the landing page for Keepers. So when you get into the system and you access Keepers, this is the page you see. Okay? You'll want to take your mouse and hover over where it says Home. When you do that, you get this drop down of assorted things to choose from. And you as a reviewer need to select the program inventory. And you click on that. This is the view that you'll see. Across the top, it'll have the username and the name of the EPP across the top banner. Okay, that's pre-selected given the username that you use to access the information. When you click on the program category, a drop-down box allows you to select the program area you have been assigned. This landing page for the program inventory view has tabs underneath the category. These tabs are the EPP IHE Profile, Clinical Educator, Courses, Assessment, Standards, Responses, EPP Attachments, and Program Attachments. The EPP Profile provides information about the mission of the institution, the mission, the vision, the clinical partnerships, the quality assurance system, and some other optional information that just gives an overview of the institution and the EPP. This is an information-only piece. Okay? It's available should you want to take a look at it if you're not familiar with the institution whose program you are reviewing. Okay? In order to access the specific information, you would click on the response button to the right, and that would give you some specific context related to those components. The clinical educators, and this is just an FYI only, clinical educators is not something that our content reviewers are asked to review or respond to. Okay? But this tab just allows you to see the faculty associated with this program category, and it identifies the instructional faculty members, their qualifications or their experiences, and the courses that they can teach. There is a second faculty view, which is that second radio button that identifies the the faculty who are qualified to teach courses in the program. The second view may have fewer faculty identified since they are the actual instructors of the courses. The next tab is the courses, and this identifies the courses appropriate for the program. Okay. It also provides the link to the syllabi, but in order to access that, you'll have to first select the program code. Okay. The program code will be included in the email that is sent to you with the username and password, and it identifies the specific program attributes that for the program that you're being asked to review. The majority of these programs will be initial teacher preparation programs. This courses table, besides providing the syllabi, identifies the credit hours associated with that course, the field hours, and please note the field hours are generally those pre-student teaching experiences, and then the field days is any student teaching days that are required. The last two columns that you see on this page relating to diversity and technology, these are optional fields for our EPPs to respond to. So, but that might be a quick and easy step to look at as you're looking to answer those questions at the end, those yes/no questions around diversity and technology. It may help identify which syllabi to go back and look at specifically. If there are more courses that are demonstrated in the display than can be viewed in the display, be sure to scroll down the page to see all the courses. When you see a blue linked syllabus, you can click on that link to be able to see the syllabus associated. Depending upon which browser you are using, the steps to view and or download may be a little bit different. Just a general note, Chrome seems to be the best browser that works to access and open the documents. Syllabi for all professional education and methods courses should be available in the syllabi column. When you click on each of the syllabi to confirm alignment with the standards, elements, field and clinical practice, and assessments. Syllabi are required to demonstrate alignment of the standards with either the course objectives, sometimes called student learner outcomes, or the performance assessments. The courses table identifies the field hours, and these field hours ought to be demonstrated and evidenced in the syllabi. In addition to confirmation of these hours, the syllabi should provide evidence of the expectations for the field and clinical practice. The next tab is the assessment tab, and this displays all the assessments used for the specific program. I would like to clarify there are course assessments that are related to student performance, and then there are program assessments that the EPP uses to evaluate the effectiveness of their programs. Okay? This assessment tab is intended to capture those program evaluation assessments, some of which are tied to courses and capture the student performance data. This tab identifies the assessment name, the area that's being assessed, a description of that assessment, the reliability and validity of that assessment, and when that assessment occurs. Once you select this tab, it'll ask again to identify what is the specific program code, and you'll want to pick the one that you're looking at for the assignment you've been given. The View Details button on the right gives specific information about each assessment. Okay? The information identifies which standards are being assessed, gives a space for the validity and reliability of the instrument if it's necessary, but specifics about which standards are aligned to the courses are in the Standards tab. The next slide shows a picture of what, back up one please, Kathy, shows a picture of when you click on that View Details, this is what you see. All right. So the standards is the next tab. And this demonstrates the alignment of the applicable standards to both the courses and the assessments. When you first open the standards tab, the course radio button, which is that first red arrow on the right that you see, demonstrates the alignment of the applicable standards to the course. Select the program code you were sent. If you've been assigned multiple codes, you'll need to do this step for each assigned program code. The standards may or may not be the same. Once the program code is selected, the table will automatically generate the standards and elements the EPP has aligned to the program courses. You may sort and filter as needed. To sort, you can grab the standard category language at the top of the column and drag it to the line above. So for example, if I want to sort out and see separately the National Science Teachers Association, I can select just those standards and the screen will filter out everything else except the courses that are aligned to that standard. If I want to look at the Kentucky Teacher Performance Standards, I can either type in that line right below where it says standards category, I can type in the letter K, and if they've aligned with the teacher standards, the system will pull the KTPS together. This table that you see can be sorted and filtered in a variety of ways. If you're not comfortable using the sort and filter features on the table, you can export to Excel in the majority of these different tabs. One of the ways a content reviewer can sort this information to determine which standards and elements have been aligned to the courses is by dragging and dropping the standard category or the description or the component description, and it'll sort those in that order. So in the example you see, they have been sorted by standard category and component description. So every course that addresses NSTA Standard 1 would show up on the list, then the next one. This particular screen can be very long and would be easier to focus if you use some of the features to sort, group, and filter the data. By holding down the left mouse button on a column header, drag and release the column by moving it up to the blue line right above it, and dropping it is how you will use the sort feature. This groups all the information with similar data within that header. You can also look at the standards through the assessment lens by clicking on the radio button that says Assessments. Okay. Please note that EPPs are required to align their program assessments with the Kentucky Teacher Standards. If it is a teacher leader program, the assessments must be aligned with the teacher leader model standards. And if it's an ed admin program, the assessments have to be aligned to the PEASL standards. Counselor programs have to align to the Kentucky Counselor programs. The majority of the programs assess the teacher standards. In the assessment view, the system automatically selects the group And again, you can sort and filter by dragging and dropping into the blue line above, or you can export to Excel if you're more comfortable sorting and filtering by using Excel. If you want to see the standards in numerical order, all you have to do is click on the name of the particular column. So if you want to see the standards in order, you click on standards and it will arrange them chronologically in either ascending or descending order. The next section that provides some detail that you'll, as content reviewers, want to look at is the responses tab. This tab contains a series of questions that are appropriate for the defined program code. When you select the responses tab, you select again the identified program code and then select a section. All sections should include a response unless the question indicates that it is either optional or a duplicate question. Each section may contain a long narrative, so you'll need to scroll down through all the answers. Every time you change a selection option, the screen responses will change as well. The sections include questions relating to program experience, clinical experience, P12 experience, evidence and analysis, summary analysis, continuous improvement, and the quality assurance system. Content reviewers should focus on the responses provided in the program experience section, the clinical experiences section, and the P12 experiences. The next to last tab is the EPP Attachments. This tab contains documents that apply to the EPP and may not be program specific. The EPP attachments may include sample partnership agreements, student handbooks, teacher education handbooks, general policies that apply to the majority, if not all, of the preparation programs. The attachment name may be random, since it is the name of the file the EPP uploaded. The document type, which is that second column, indicates the general purpose of the document. For example, a student handbook, a mentoring plan, P12 curriculum evidence, etc. And again, you can sort by doing the same thing by grabbing the name of the column and dragging and dropping it to the blue line above. The last tab contains documents that are program specific. And again, the name of the attachment may be random, as the EPP names the file. The document type indicates the general purpose for this document. For example, curriculum guide, assessment rubric. You can click on any of the documents by clicking on the attachment name and downloading and opening a copy. Before proceeding to section 3, are there any questions? Kathy, does anybody have anything in the chat?
I don't see anything. I don't see anything in the chat. All of a sudden I have an echo. So are we pretty much good on that section, you think?
And no one has their hand raised, so I'm assuming that everyone's okay. Will a cheat sheet be for this to be supplied?
Define what you mean by cheat sheet. Go ahead and turn on your mic if you're more comfortable doing it.
Actually, Allison, let me just take that for a second. One of the resources that we will have for you is a reviewer's guide. So we do have a recent updated keeper's guide that will walk you through. So many of the screenshots that you saw in Allison's section was taken exactly from an updated technical guide. So that in one sense is a cheat sheet. So hopefully that will be no problem to have to bail, Charles. You'll be able to use the new updated form, I'm sure, to be able to submit yours. Thanks for joining us today. We do appreciate it. So that will be one. Hopefully that cheat sheet will be helpful. I think that's a cheat sheet.
Okay. So Kathy is going to take over and finish up with section 3.
All right, so in the past, we have always used an Excel spreadsheet. Let me turn on. It's hard for me to get all of the buttons I'm supposed to push at one time. It's sometimes hard for me to walk and chew gum, so I appreciate your patience. In previous years, we have always used an Excel spreadsheet to be able to have you document the evidence where Eve had talked about scoring the rubric and then providing comments. What we're going to be doing this year is we are moving now to using a Google form for you to be able to submit that. It will just help us to be able to put together the different different comments for each one of the content reviews. For those of you who have worked with us in the past, you know that many times there are at least 2 or 3 of you who are reviewing the same program so that we can get a view of the program, and that Google form will help us to be able to put all of that evidence together. So when you receive an email asking you to complete a content review, you will receive a link to the Google form. So your email will include also a link to the EPSB website where your program information can be found. It will also include that unique user ID that you will use to log on to EPSB. So let me get here and forward my slides a little bit. So we're talking about how you're going to be able to document the evidence. If any of you want to, while we're talking, just go ahead and type in this URL. You can have a look at the form. You can even play around if you want. I don't think we're going to have enough time at the end to do some of the practice that we thought we would, but if you want to look at the form, you're more than welcome to do so. So the first thing that you see here is typical information that when you get the form, once you open it, you will type in your name and the date that you're reviewing the form. Again, typical information. The next 2 sections will ask you to select the EPP of the program where you're reviewing. And remember that you receive that in the email and then just identify the program that you're reviewing. So these are simple check boxes. The next section asks you to identify the program type. Again, everything that you need for the form will be in that email. So whether it's a traditional or if it's a option 6, the alternative route, or whether it's an advanced teacher or an other school professional. Again, a drop down so that you can just select it. The next section is where you document the evidence for those questions that Eve went over. Many of you are familiar with. You're just going to select which number you're going to score. Again, a radio button, click it, and then right underneath there is the place where you will provide your evidence or a comment. So it may look like, as we looked over the form kind of the second time, it looked like the question was being asked twice, because you see the question repeated, but really it's just the same question. One is the rubric and one is the space. In Google, it doesn't allow you to put one question and then 2 ways to respond. So it looks like there's 2 questions, but it's it looks like we're repeating the question, but we're not. One is the rubric, one is the comment. I'm sure it'll be very, very intuitive to you. The next section is the program requirements. And again, the same thing, it'll be repeated. So is the program requirement diversity integrated across the curriculum? You'll answer it yes, no, or somewhat, and then a way to provide comments or evidence. And then you'll have each one of those repeated. And that's it. Then finally, you'll give your overall comments. So again, very, very simple. I get the easy part of the presentation. The form is simply a Google form that you will then submit. I didn't put the snapshot of the submit button. One nice piece is when you submit it, you can also check so that you can have it also send you the results. So maybe you would like to keep a copy of your comments, because the next time when you review a program, it's not that you're going to copy and paste. Certainly, I know that, but sometimes you just like to look at comments that you used in the past and how would they be the same. It's helpful to just refresh your memory. So you can have your comments that you submitted emailed to you. So,
excuse me, Kathy, can I add something here?
Please.
In the overall comments, what we're asking you to do is to kind of give us a holistic view about what your impression is about the overall program in its entirety. Provide any final comments, any relevant feedback as it relates to the overall quality of the program. In this section, you may wish to provide suggestions for improvement or ways to strengthen the candidate's experiences within the program. This is a way that we can then share your feedback with the institution as suggestions for improvement.
Question that just popped up in chat was, if you are assigned a traditional program and an alt-cert program, do you do 2 Google Docs?
Thank you so much. I appreciate Allison getting me back on script. Those were definitely comments I should have shared. That's a great question. Yes. So if you are assigned both programs, you will need to submit a different form for each program.
The other thing that I think our content reviewers need to be assured of is that your comments and your review alone does not disapprove a program. You're simply giving your expert opinion. We have more than one person giving those. So please don't hesitate to feel comfortable in providing comments and scoring a program, because this is one way the programs can be reviewed. But remember, as Allison talked about earlier, there's a whole process involved here, and you're just a piece of the process, but a very, very important piece.
Thanks, Eve.
Also, be assured that your identity is known only to the staff. So if you know, don't be concerned that you can't be honest in fear that the institution that you're reviewing is going to hate you. All right. All of the reviews, as far as the EPP is concerned, they don't know who's reviewing what. So your identity is completely anonymous to them.
And we redact all of that information. That's one of the things about being able to have it in a Google form, that all of those comments will then go honestly in a actually in a kind of just a summary, if you will, and be shared then with the program review committee, so they can see that in a more holistic way, as opposed to reviewing all of these different Excel worksheets. So having it submitted electronically is a way that we can really make the process a little bit more efficient and continue to ensure anonymity. So I do have up there those URLs for both of those sites. Again, looking at our list, Many of you are very familiar with keepers, and so I don't think you need any practice with keepers. I'm sure that, and again, filling out a Google form, you filled out a Google form to indicate your interest to be here. So I don't think you need much practice with filling out a Google form, but I wanted to provide it to you so that in either case, you would have access to it now. And we will stay online so that if you want to try anything out, you're welcome to. But I also know that you've had a long day. So I'm going to offer Eve and Allison any closing comments. But then after that, we'll wrap up. Again, we're going to stay online. But if you want to stay online and try anything, we'll be here. But other than that, we would close the session for you. So Eve, you go first, and then I'll ask Allison to wrap us up.
I just want to thank everyone for participating. We do have a question about when should we expect the email with the information. These program reviews are done at different times during the year. So I don't know if Kathy is having any initial programs. Right now we have several advanced educational leadership programs being reviewed. But that email comes within the month that we give you about a month to review the content and stuff. So Kathy, do you want to give them any information about when they can expect one?
Absolutely. We will probably send out some requests for reviews within the next, I would say, 2 weeks. We do have a program review committee scheduled for the end of October. So we want to make sure that we get that out ASAP, because we'd like to give you within 3 to 4 weeks for a time frame of sharing. Allison, I just want to make sure that you realize you're sharing your screen. Did you know that?
I am?
Yes, or someone is. It's not me.
Oh, well.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone is.
It's not us, but anyway.
Somebody with a math Google Jamboard. So I'm really excited. I wanted to, so I should have known it's not Allison. So somebody who's got a Google Jamboard going for math. I'm excited. Oh, so and Murray, who's at Murray?
It's Jamie Mahoney, and she commented that it was her. Thanks, Jamie, for letting us know. You're so talented Jamie. Anyway. So thanks, everyone. We noticed that several of you are leaving. We are very appreciative of your work. This is really a credit to the profession. So we value you guys. You're super, super important.
Take us home, Allison.
Okay. So, well, I just want to, reiterate Eve's comments about we could not review these programs without your all's expertise, without your assistance. You all are a critical piece of this process. Kathy will make all of this information, the recording, all the notes and things available to you. There is going to be also a Google Classroom set up that you can go through as a self-paced module if you need to, refresh anything that you've heard today. At any point in time, if you have any questions about any of this at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the three of us via email or phone call. Our contact information is the last slide in the presentation. Most of you probably already know how to find any of the three of us at any given time. So, but there is our contact information. So please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us. If you're not sure of, when you're reviewing a program, you're not sure of what you're seeing, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. It will, obviously, this is something that you get better at the more that you participate and the more that you do it. It's easier. You'll learn how to manipulate the keepers in what you're seeing, and you'll also pick up tips on where to look for information. And always, when in doubt, check the syllabi. So, thank you all very much. We appreciate your attendance and your willingness to participate as a content reviewer.
Thanks all. As I said, we're going to stick online until 4:30 in case anybody would have questions or would need us. But other than that, thanks again. You're welcome to log off as you need. Have a great rest of the week and weekend.
Kathy, I don't know if you're still recording, but you may want to turn the recorder off.
Thanks, Eve.